Good morning.
Good morning.
Everyone.
What time it is on your side?
Well, it's 6:20 a.m.
Whoa, it's really early.
Well, it's a delight to be here with everyone to talk to you today.
Cool. Actually, I'm gonna pronounce you in Polish now, so sorry for a second. Słuchajcie, to jest Ben West, który zajmuje się technologiami od samego początku. Nadaje do nas bodajże ze zachodniej części Stanów Zjednoczonych, więc różnica jest ogromna, bo to u niego jest 6:20 rano, czyli jeżeli dobrze liczę, to jest 8 godzin różnicy. I opowiem wam o swoich doświadczeniach z technologiami. Przypominam, to jest człowiek, który z pierwszego rzędu siedział w technologiach cukrzycowych od samego początku ich tworzenia, więc przekazuję go wam. Ben, I just talked a few things about how great you are, and the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Jerry. It's so exciting to be here. I'm really happy that Jerry was able to put together this experience for us today. Thank you for hosting. What I'd like to talk to you today about is this concept I've been working on having to do with what is it like to travel a life with diabetes, and what is it like to live a life with diabetes using technology to the greatest extent possible for our therapies. How would you describe that therapy? And what does that say a little bit about what the future is coming? So this is we'll take a whirlwind tour. I'm just going to touch on some ideas briefly. I've formed a company around some of these concepts called Medical Data Networks, and we'll get into a little bit of that as well as a new product that I've been working on called t1pel.com. So Medical Data Networks, the company I founded, we exist to connect people with diabetes to the people they trust and the experts they choose just in time and on demand. And I'd like to break down some of those components and talk about what do we really mean when we talk about connecting people with diabetes with who, when do we want to do that, why do we want to do that, why is that so important? And as we know, as people that live with diabetes, there's Adam Brown has put together this remarkable poster of the 42 factors that affect blood glucose with Diatribe. If you've not seen this before, I encourage you to go check it out. But there's all of the activities, the medications, the foods, the biological forces that are at work, and the environmental forces at work. All of those things have a confounding influence on controlling diabetes. And yet, the equipment that we're given is often created in what I call single player mode. It's created in solo mode. You get an insulin pump, and who gets to look at the insulin pump? You do. It's on a display that only you have access to. And so let's dig into this video. I want to show this video about a little bit more about the importance of sharing.
It's a little sketchy.
Yeah, type 1 diabetes can be quite lonely, and to see other people, sharing their ups and downs can be really helpful. So,
right. So if I'm having like a hard week, sometimes it's helpful to see like, okay, I'm not alone.
I was looking for the commonality. I didn't have anybody that understood.
The emotional support that you get from people that have type 1, I just think can't be replicated by your doctor. Data sharing is not just data. In diabetes, there's so many factors.
I have tried to help explain to parents, because I've had a lot of parents send me their child's graph and say, what do you think my child is feeling right now? And that's very hard to do because there's so many variables, right?
When most people share data, they share raw data because the industry, they don't get it.
A lot of times, if I share anything from Nightscout, then it gets so many questions.
It's really a pain in the butt to mark up the thing and do it. But all those notations is really what gives the data power.
With this thing called the 42 variables that impact your blood sugars. If there was an emoji for each of those, I think that would be kind of fun.
And people could share, I did these 5 things, I did these 5 conditions, and here's the before and here's the after.
I would post numbers based on that, trends or A1C
pharmacy type stuff, because I think that's more meaningful for me to get the response back from them.
Use Nightscout for reports and to look for patterns.
You can see things and ask questions of why is it doing that, why did it do that, and get ideas that you can apply to yourself.
Tips for dealing like certain types of food or certain activities or certain things like that.
I wanted to share, this was like the first day of fasting versus this is the last day of fasting.
And so if I were to make a post about this, it would probably be to show how different sick days are from regular days, and mostly just looking for sympathy and support.
Okay, so what I wanted to do is introduce Nightscout for the people that are not familiar with Nightscout. A lot of people already are familiar with Nightscout, so I'll review it really quickly, and introduce T1Pal, the first product from my company. So T1Pal.com is Nightscout as a service, and that allows people to get all the benefits of Nightscout with some extra things. So Nightscout allows people to share their glucose data, their insulin data, and their treatments in real time with anyone that they want over the web. And this is an extremely powerful, flexible way to share your diabetes experiences because it eliminates a lot of the steps associated with getting the data and then addressing it to someone. It's just always available online on a dashboard, and you can pull it up any old time you want. It's got a lot of apps connected to that ecosystem. There's lots of watch applications. There's lots of, there's even hardware accessories that can sit on your nightstand. And there's lots of applications that know how to work with Nightscout. And so T1Pal provides a reliable and predictable experience on top of that DIY experience. One of the things I really want to dig into today is this idea of why is it so important to share with these different groups of people. And I think that part of that is that we should be using technology in a humane and equitable way in order for people to travel a life with diabetes with as much flexibility as we have in the real world for other services. And what I mean by that is if you want to travel from point A to point B, from one city to another, if I want to travel from here in San Diego to Los Angeles, I have so many options available to me. I could hitchhike, I could walk and be a pedestrian. That's not necessarily advisable, but that's kind of like do it yourself. I could decide, I want to get a ride share, and I'm willing to get a driver to take me from San Diego to another city, and today I can call up on my phone a temporary driver through a ride sharing service and get that. I could drive myself. I could get a car and take my own car, or I could get a taxi, or I could take mass transit. So there's a number of options available for traveling, getting mobility services from point A to point B. And I think as we travel forward into the future, what we should see is increasing availability to travel a life with diabetes in the same way, right? And so what do we mean? What does it mean to share those experiences? Well, there's several pillars of sharing when we talk about sharing. Who do you want to share with and why? And these are the pillars that I've come up with that help me architect Nightscout for data sharing and help me understand what features are coming next as we move into the future. And so one of the big ones that we see is sharing with yourself is really important. This idea that I'm going to bring the watch that I bought last week. 2 years ago, this watch didn't exist. 2 years ago, this phone didn't exist. But I'm going to bring that device that I bought into the medical system, and it's going to become part of the medical system that's responsible for my care. That's this concept of bring your own device. That's increasingly important. Clinicians and my doctor, it's very important to be able to share with my doctor, get clinical advice from them. But then there's all these other groups. These are really the two obvious groups where it's obvious, oh, okay, we need to share with, I need to see on my displays, and then my doctor also needs to see. But then the hidden side that we saw in the video is that all of these other groups are really not accounted for with a lot of the devices that we get. This idea that everyone's got their diet buddy, that's what we call it in the United States. But this concept of the people that share your experiences are people that are easier for you to share with. that somehow that empathy that you get from people with diabetes transcends the connection that you can get with a lot of other people. And it turns out that establishing that kind of experience is really important for the human condition. There's when you travel under authority, when you're traveling and you see security staff, security personnel, or if you're a school child and you're going through the school system and you're passing through many different realms of authority throughout the day, you need a basis to appeal to authority, to say, hey, these are my needs, these are my medical needs, and I need to have accommodation for those needs. There's friends and family. There is the casual acquaintance versus the mentor. I've run into people asking, what are all those devices hanging out? And there's not a good way for me to explain. So having a tool to be able to explain would be great. And then finally, there's just data sharing. People share their private, personal thoughts on this new invention called a blog, right? And people author blog posts, and they share that sometimes in the private, sometimes anonymously, and then sometimes in public. And so again, relying on that metaphor of traveling through a life with diabetes should have as many choices as we have without diabetes. And that includes the ability to share and move through these things. So what I'd like to do now is shift a little bit, and I will share T1 PAL. So T1 PAL offers a getting started guide, which I won't get into too much here. It's a classic checkout experience. But when you're welcomed into the site, after you create your site, you're welcomed aboard with a screen that looks like this. And this allows you to import your data directly from Dexcom, or you can choose to do something else. There's this convenient wizard here that asks you, are you using Dexcom, or are you using a Nightscout uploader? And you can choose whatever you like. So instead of going through lots of different steps and enabling lots of different plugins, now it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. You select which style you'd like, and you're all configured. So this is all that's now required. The several hours that people recommend to get started with Nightscout, that is now gone. This is now the entire process. That's all that's needed to get Nightscout up and running. So Nightscout is now up and running. And let me show you some of the sharing features that we just discussed is so important. So one is that we have the concept of private Nightscout, which means that by default, when someone joins T1 PAL, only the logged in owner has access to their private Nightscout. And then, as we discussed, it's important to enable sharing and for the people whose data this belongs, the patients themselves, to be in charge of that sharing experience. And so that's exactly on YouTube, or just like on Google Docs, you can share your private YouTube links, you can share your private Google Docs with exactly the people you choose and the experts you trust. And so in the same way, we provide this social feature where you can create as many URLs as you like, and these are there's a cryptographic piece to these so that people cannot guess these. So I can open this up and share it with the conference, and then the moment I'm done with this will load just fine, and this gives anyone that I've given access to this URL has access to this site. And then when I'm done with it, I can actually just go in and delete it. And now no one has access to this ever again. It's gone. So this enables sharing. It allows really granular controls in terms of now I can share with the babysitter just for the weekend. And I don't have to worry about getting the babysitter logged in. I don't have to worry about getting the babysitter to install an app. It's just as simple as sharing a link with them. And I know that they don't have access to the data other than the times that I've given them permission to access the data. Okay, so that's a little bit about T1 PAL. We've just touched on this really briefly. I'm going to close up now and ask for get some questions and discussion going. But this is the idea I kind of want to put out there is what do we really want? What are we talking about when we talk about traveling a life with diabetes and sharing diabetes? One is, I think we want monitor and predicting and controlling. That was the roadmap we used when we came up with Nightscout and OpenAPS. It started with, we got to monitor the situation using past events. Then we want to predict what will happen. And then finally, we want to use those predictions. If those predictions pan out, we want to use that data. We want to use those predictions to actually control our destiny, right? And we want to do that in every way that is possible to us. And so that means we want to enable high fidelity healthcare through technology, through the equitable and humane application of technology. And that means we need to bring our own devices. We need to share in real time with the people we trust, and we need to share with the experts we choose. And what is it that we're sharing? We're sharing not only the past events, but we're sharing all of the predictions that may occur, including the dosing decisions. So I think that's ultimately where this is actually heading, is we don't want to be trapped in a dosing decision all by ourselves. At the time when a dosing decision is taking place, isn't that the best time to get help, to get the encouragement, to get the analysis that's needed to make a confident dosing decision, especially in those situations that are tricky and scary. So that's all I've got for now. I'd like to close and open it up for questions with Jerry. Again, I just thank Jerry so much for being here. It's been a real pleasure to talk to everyone today.
Okay, I'm here. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your presentation. I love the idea about the T1 PAL because we had, I think last year there was a problem with Heroku and MongoDB that was like mind blowing for all of the diabetes society community to transfer the data, and there were a lot of tutorials, YouTube movies, and so on. So I think the T1 PAL here is like a great tool for everybody to just have a Nightscout. Don't worry about all of the tech aspects, and have the support of people that are on top of things, right? Just tell me one thing. If it comes to the future of T1 PAL, are you planning to like work with the manufacturers of like Medtronic or Dexcom or other manufacturers of diabetes technology stuff to work together?
Yes, that is the plan. The way I look at this is Nightscout has 7 years head start on any vendor that you can name. Medtronic started a couple years ago. Insulet started last year. Tandem started last year. Dexcom has had Dexcom Share and Follow, but it hasn't been up. It's been updated once in like 6 years. So the way that I see it is that the diabetes industry is in need of leadership. Right? It is legitimately. I've spent 4 years at Dexcom now, and I can tell you that from when you're on the inside and in one of these organizations and seeing how the sausage gets made, when you're inside of the workflow, it is legitimately confusing to try to understand what are the needs of people with diabetes. What is the market telling us that are the most important things? As with a lot of human discussions, if you ask 4 people for their opinions, you might get 4 or even 5 different answers, right? So it can be legitimately difficult for industry when they hear people with diabetes talking about what's needed. It can be difficult for them to understand very clearly what that is.
Cool. Okay, we have a question from one of our attendees, Alexander, I think, is asking you. So, Ben, look out, it's going to be a hard one. You talk about providing healthcare, and you have a commercial platform built on a Nightscout solution. But the Nightscout itself is not FDA approved, is it? How do you cope with regulatory and possible liability issues from patients?
Yeah, so we are working with the FDA. The privacy features that I mentioned, that's something that T1PAL adds to the experience. And the reason we worked so hard on adding that is because when we talked to the FDA in 2014, that was one of the things that they called out as saying, you can do this, but this is one of the things that we are not sure if it meets our requirements. So as a requirement, as a regulatory agency, as a requirement, we require that companies, commercial offerings, make it provide an experience that provides for secure, confidential data exchange with high data integrity. We want integrity of the data, and that means that it can be private and it can be confidential. And it doesn't look like you meet those requirements today. And so that was on the technical side, and then on non-technical side, there was, well, you're decentralized. You have decentralized development, and you don't really have an organization around you, and so that's also a problem. And so what T1PAL is doing is providing solutions for both of those things, both of those problems. One is we provide a secure, confidential, private Nightscout experience, and if the patient wants to open up and share, we provide ways to carve out what should be shared, when should it be shared. Let's provide controls and mitigations for that so that it can be done properly. Two is the decentralized piece. We're solving that. Now T1PAL is providing a centralized place where, okay, we have a well-defined control mechanism to figure out if there's a bug, if something's happening. How do we identify who might be affected by that bug? How do we communicate with them? Now we have because T1PAL provides a centralized place, we have a very well-defined place to do all of those management touch points.
Yeah, and if it comes to security now, when you see a hole in the security system, you can manage it from the centralized point of view, and all of the patients have the update internally. So there's no need for tutorials, YouTube movies, and blog posts about how do you fix the problem, how do you update the Nightscout site, or etc. So yeah, do you plan on go on more markets than USA, because T1PAL is not as known in Europe and Poland as I think it is. What are your plans for that?
Well, it works worldwide. And commensurate with the resources, we will work to comply with every regulatory agency that is applicable.
Okay, that's cool. I'm just gonna look on the chat. Awesome. Alec writes, awesome, that answers my questions completely. Thank you. You're welcome, I think. Okay, the one last thing. There is one attendee that is asking, when are you plan to make Medtronic 780G working with T1PAL? As far as we know, it doesn't work with T1PAL.
Let's take T1PAL out of it. Does it work with Nightscout? There are. So this is an important topic I was hoping to avoid. But
Gotcha.
The truth of the matter, though, and people should know this, is that there are a variety of threats to our data access. The technology landscape over the last 10 years, for better or for worse, has had an absence of security mitigations that we as patients have exploited to get access to our data. Now, the issue is that as new technology comes on the market, and that technology includes technical measures that prevent the same methods of data access. What is the data governance story for patients? And unfortunately, most of the industry right now is on the same page as Medtronic and what we see with 780G, which is that the technical measures have been matured and advanced enough that unless you already have the documentation and unless you already have the security material, the cryptographic material, the key material needed to decrypt the data, that for a lot of the new devices that are coming onto the market, there won't be any data access for us. And so a lot of the ecosystem that we're looking at, whether it's Loop or OpenAPS or free APS or anything in that entire ecosystem, we are under threat. We may lose access to these to the data. And the reason for that is because the data governance policies do not necessarily consider that self-access by the patient bringing their own device is an authorized use of the data.
Okay.
And so that's where a lot of the policy discussions are happening right now. How do the cybersecurity requirements for compliance intersect or interfere with the data governance the data governance piece with patients getting access to their data? So that is a real, it's an ongoing issue, and it's one of those areas where my hope is that as T1PAL can legitimize Nightscout, bring it above board, gain regulatory approval, that a lot of these companies, the Medtronics of the world, the Dexcoms of the world, they'll see the progress that we've made and say, oh, there is no reason to not partner. Everyone shares goals and objectives, and now that you are operating in a way that we recognize, we are able to partner with you. So in other words, by medical data networks providing this layer of compliance for the DIY community, we hope that we can support and actively protect the innovation that we've seen.
Yeah, actually, the thing you say is kind of happening as we speak, because the companies are more open to for working together with some. Let's give a title as an example. When they started to work with Dexcom and Medtronic and so on to share their solution onto App Store if it comes to the Loop solution. So I think it's happening. I think the companies are more and more open. It's gonna they have to be, because we are one voice with the diabetes community. We try so hard to get heard from the companies, and I think it's going pretty well. Our conference is also an example of a fine. Working together a solution with partners, diabetes partners that make the tech happen. So I hope that answers all of our questions here. Security issues are always an issue. There will always be an issue, and there's always going to be a discussion about it. So let's just stop on this. Let's just stop here. And okay, Ben, that's about it. It wraps it up. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day. I know it's early in the morning, so you have a whole day in front of you. Here we have 3 p.m., so it's like a half day after. And hopefully I'm planning to organize Cukrzyca Tech Fest offline. So if you're gonna have time and the pandemic situation, the global pandemic situation ends, feel invited to Poland, feel invited to Gdynia, to Cukrzyca Tech Fest offline, and hopefully we can high fives here, and see you later.
Thank you so much, Jerry. It's nice talking to everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Take care.